This is CBC Vancouver News.
We had an opportunity to make sure that the workers got a chance to have their say at the table.
Grain terminal workers in Metro Vancouver have reached a tentative deal, ending a 4-day strike that saw grain shipments disrupted across the country. Plus,
in a controlled factory environment, you can build faster, you can build with less waste.
We will remove all the other cost structures that are being mandated by this NDP government.
BC's housing challenges. The Conservatives and NDP have some very different approaches to tackling it. Also,
it's allowed us to identify what is a mushroom, be able to pick it with high accuracy.
From warnings about deep fakes to the future of farming in BC, artificial intelligence is a big topic at a summit in Kelowna. Hello, I'm Janella Hamilton. Thanks for joining us. Grain terminal workers in Metro Vancouver have reached a tentative deal with its employer, ending a 4-day-long strike that saw grain shipments disrupted across the country. The union says workers will be back on the job as soon as tomorrow morning.
It was great to see this government not intervene in our collective bargaining process, the federal government, and that we had an opportunity to make sure that the workers got a chance to have their say at the table.
Workers walked off the job on Tuesday, bringing operations at 6 grain terminals at BC ports to a halt right in the middle of harvest season. The federal labor minister announcing tonight a tentative deal has been reached with the help of a mediator. A ratification vote is scheduled for October 4th. With 22 days until the provincial election, the BC NDP and BC Conservatives have been talking housing on the campaign trail. And as Katie DeRosa reports, they have very different approaches to tackling our housing crisis.
Comox, we call it the Comox box, here in the Comox Valley, where these are very standard houses that were basically pre-approved by the municipalities.
As the NDP's campaign bus rolled through Courtenay, the city's mayor says his community is a good example of the kind of thinking needed to spur home construction.
People could just walk in and they knew pretty much what the cost was going to be, but because they were doing them on such a volume, it allowed them to be deployed much faster and much less expensive.
Speaking in nearby Cumberland, NDP leader David Eby touted a plan to use prefabricated homes, which can be built in as little as 12 weeks.
In a controlled factory environment, you can build faster, you can build with less waste. The homes that are built are more consistent and more efficient, and it's cheaper.
He also highlighted new provincial laws that allow multifamily units on single-family lots. BC Conservative leader John Rustad unveiled his housing plan in Surrey. He's pledging to fast-track development permits, introduce new tax incentives to spur rental buildings, and remove zero-emission targets, which he says puts an unnecessary burden on builders.
It's estimated that the costs have increased between 30% and 40% for middle-class housing under this NDP, with their hidden taxes associated with the step code and other components associated with this.
Rustad says he would scrap the NDP's multifamily housing law, which some mayors have said does not work for their communities. Rustad also says he would not force low-barrier supportive housing on any community, and he would shut down existing sites if residents are causing problems. The BC Green Party candidate for Courtenay Comox says neither the Conservatives nor NDP are doing enough to address the province's homelessness crisis.
All I've heard is involuntary care. That is the only solution that I've heard. And it is not a solution that is compassionate. It's not even a solution based on evidence.
Hamir says the Greens would increase the use of tiny homes for people living on the streets, like has already been done in Victoria and Duncan. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Cumberland.
And our election coverage will continue later in the show. We'll be speaking with Daybreak South host Chris Walker about key issues in the Southern Interior and Okanagan as part of our reoccurring host-to-host interview series. With tools like ChatGPT now at your fingertips, artificial intelligence is becoming part of everyday life. In Kelowna, leading minds gathered at the Level Up AI Summit to unveil the next frontier in this rapidly evolving field. Among them, BC entrepreneurs who are already riding the wave of AI innovation. The CBC's Brady Strachan has more.
Well, now you can have an assistant that can actually do it for you.
Industry visionaries like Alessia and Kane Minkus took the stage at the AI Summit on Friday, offering the crowd a glimpse into the future of artificial intelligence.
The power of artificial intelligence today is creating a world where there are no boundaries due to languages.
Some of the technology on display, real-time multilingual communication, already transforming how people connect across the globe.
Le pouvoir de l'intelligence artificielle aujourd'hui, die Kraft der künstlichen Intelligenz schafft heute eine Welt.
Along with the breakthroughs, there were also warnings, like these disturbingly real deepfake videos of political leaders, to ethical concerns. Speakers cautioned against the potential dark side of AI. Closer to home, innovators in BC are finding real-world uses for AI. Tech entrepreneur Chris Payne shared how his team in Salmon Arm is using AI-powered robots to revolutionize commercial mushroom farming.
So it's allowed us to identify what is a mushroom, be able to pick it with high accuracy, trim it and test the quality of that before we pack it. And that's really important for reaching a quality standard that's important when you're shipping produce out to grocery stores that people are actually going to buy.
Beyond the tech demos, the summit was a peek into what the technology could bring just a few short years from now.
I'm really keen to see some of those physical world changes. Excited when, full automated self-driving is all around.
This means that, for example, the lead...
As ideas take root, event organizers are confident that AI will soon become a key part of everyday life in the Okanagan.
The possibilities to unleash your creativity, you're not hindered by the tools, right? And by, the technology. The technology will empower you as opposed to slow you down.
And he's already gearing up for next year's summit, eager to see where AI will take us next. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Kelowna.
Around 13,000 people near Sooke on Vancouver Island are being hit by a water main break. The Capital Regional District says their water quality is being affected and is asking people to reduce their water use until the break is repaired. Take a look here at some of the areas that are impacted. They include Sooke, East Sooke, parts of Juan de Fuca electoral area, and Sooke First Nation. The district says the repairs will take days, with the next 24 hours being critical. Officials say initial reports indicate a fallen tree caused the break in the water main, but they won't know for sure what happened or how long a fix will take until the main is fully dug up. The family of a missing Indigenous woman is still looking for answers 7 years after she disappeared. Christina Ward was 21 when she went missing in September 2017. Investigators say several tips have come in, but none have panned out. But her parents say they have not given up finding her.
Christina was young and developing as a young lady, and she was fun, loving, and easy to snap out of if she's in a little bit of a bad mood.
She enjoyed being with us. Didn't matter where we went. She wanted to come, but unfortunately she just wanted to make friends somewhere, and how she left the house, we have no idea. Her last steps that she crossed down over there, she came up here, dropped into First Slice, bought a bottle of water, and crossed the street and vanished.
We know she was last seen with the man on the bike. We've got kind of grainy pictures of that man. So we need somebody that was in this area that saw them together to come forward.
It's a stark reminder that every child matters. Christina matters. Our women, our children, our men matter, and that they're going missing at rates far higher than average Canadian communities.
The biggest struggle we have is awareness. Keep it out, the word out that Christina is somewhere out there and someone knows something. We need to bring her home. We need answers and we need closure.
Coming up, as part of our continuing election coverage, we head to the southern interior to learn what key issues matter to voters in that part of the province. That's next. With a little over 3 weeks before Election Day here in BC, we're checking in with CBC hosts across the province to hear what key issues are top of mind for voters. Earlier today, our Dan Burt spoke with Daybreak South host Chris Walker. Take a look.
Chris, appreciate you doing this. What are some of the major issues that are dominating Kelowna, the Greater Okanagan, and your listener area?
Well, you know, they're pretty similar to issues in the rest of BC. This won't be a surprise. Housing and the cost of living, access to health care, the related issues of the opioid crisis and homelessness. There is an urban-rural divide that's growing even within this region, and that might make the issues a little different in Kelowna than in rural areas, and it changes the electoral politics, which we'll talk about in a moment. But So let's start with housing. Nothing new for people in the Lower Mainland, but what's happened, Dan, since the pandemic is that people have left the Lower Mainland looking for cheaper housing. They found it here, but the problem has hitched a ride, and the demand here has been very high for 4 or 5 years. You know, we talked to a family on our show. Their rent has doubled in 6 years. Their rent, of course, has doubled, but their income hasn't changed. Now, they live downtown. So like most people in cities, they're a little more liberal. They're looking for non-market solutions in this election, co-op housing, subsidized housing, things like that. You might find different ideas in the suburbs or in rural areas where people are more conservative. So they're looking for things like tax credits, more freedom for short-term rentals, maybe lower fees for construction, those sorts of things. Now, lately in Kelowna, the rent has been falling slightly. The vacancy rate's gone up a bit. The NDP could try to take some credit for that, but people I talk to are frustrated, and frustration tends to favor the opposition. So that's housing. On healthcare, I think this is where the Conservatives have a bigger advantage. My sense is that unlike housing, driven by market forces, people lay the responsibility for healthcare directly at the feet of government. And so there's quite a bit of support here for more private solutions. There are more people here with a higher net worth. More of them are older, some of them from Alberta. The Okanagan is a place of free enterprise. So things like socialized medicine, they're viewed already with some skepticism, right? And that increasingly appeals to a younger conservative crowd here too. Now that's interesting. It's interesting because that doesn't necessarily translate to the opioid crisis. There are some loud voices further on the right, maybe, but the people I talk to, including conservatives, sometimes especially conservatives, they want more intervention by government on that particular problem, more treatment, more recovery, more programs. And this is where I think independent candidates, former BC United candidates, might be able to pick up some votes. People who kind of lean to the right but don't like John Rustad's rhetoric on the drug crisis, see this more as a healthcare issue and want bold but real centrist intervention.
You mentioned BC United. Let's dive into a bit of history here. The Kelowna area was once the BC Liberal stronghold. With United's implosion, what's the feeling for voters there now?
Well, a stronghold is an understatement. Remember when Christy Clark couldn't win in Point Grey, the party looked for the safest seat in the land. It was here. But Dan, that was then. This is now. It is a different time. All over the world, conservative politics have changed, right? And it's no different here. The old conservative tradition in this valley, like the loafer-wearing Chamber of Commerce, church-going types, that's giving way. In its place, a right wing that's more strident, influenced by American politics, influenced by social media, the anti-vaccine movement as well. And my sense is that they're pretty motivated to own the libs, as it were, to vote against any liberal cause. And if they can't right now vote against Trudeau, they're happy enough to vote against David Eby. And polls suggest that BC United's support is peeling off toward the Conservatives. Maybe not a surprise, but the Conservatives are poised to reap those rewards here.
Yeah. And lastly, we appreciate your time. Quite a few independents running. What are their chances in the Okanagan?
Well, if history is our guide, their chances are slim. There's about a 1% success rate for independent candidates in BC elections. There's only one BC United candidate that's an incumbent in the Southern Interior, now an independent, of course. So most of them were new anyway. They now find themselves without a party, without name recognition. So these are conservative ridings to lose. The hitch here could be vote splitting. There are urban ridings, Kelowna, Vernon especially, where there's enough NDP support that a split vote could lead to NDP wins. There's always an outside chance as well that well-known independents could do well, even win. I mentioned Tom Shapitka in the East Kootenay, some others to watch. Kevin Acton, popular mayor in the North Okanagan. Stephen Johnson on the west side of Kelowna. Christy Clark's old riding. So it's a short list, and Dan, it's a tall order.
Chris Walker, host of Daybreak South, we appreciate your time and your analysis. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dan.
Israel says it has carried out what it's calling a precise strike against Hezbollah leadership in Lebanon. It targeted the group's headquarters in a suburb of Beirut. Lebanon's health ministry says at least 2 people are dead and more than 70 injured. CBC's Margaret Evans has the latest.
The moment massive Israeli airstrikes hit the Lebanese capital, sending plumes of smoke up over Beirut's southern reaches. Smoke as thick as the fear on the ground that a full-scale war is now inevitable. It was the most powerful Israeli attack on Beirut in the conflict so far. Rescue workers arrived to search flattened buildings in the Dahya, the densely packed southern neighborhood known as a Hezbollah stronghold. An Israeli military spokesman soon appeared with a prepared statement, calling the attack a precise strike on the Iran-backed militia.
Hezbollah's central headquarters was intentionally built under residential buildings in the heart of the Dahya in Beirut, as part of Hezbollah's strategy of using Lebanese people as human shields.
Unconfirmed reports that the Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah was the target have been swirling on social media. Tens of thousands of Lebanese have already been displaced by cross-border attacks, but the numbers have increased dramatically since Monday, when Israel escalated its air campaign. Many of the displaced have come to Beirut, housed in schools and public buildings. The world is in ruins, says Noha Jamal. There are people still under the rubble in her village, she says. Malak Mahmoud Saleh fled with her family on Monday after Israeli strikes destroyed her home. People are mentally drained now, she says. I'm taking medication to stay calm, but we will return back home victorious. She wants Hezbollah to keep fighting as long as Israel keeps fighting. My opinion is that if they stop, she says, we will stop. That seems far less likely on either side than ever before. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Beirut.
Tonight, the Foreign Affairs Minister has a message for up to 45,000 Canadians, permanent residents, and their close family who are still in Lebanon.
Please leave now. I can't be more direct than this.
Says there are seats on commercial flights the government has reserved for those registered with Global Affairs Canada. There are also loans available for those who can't afford to buy their tickets. Here we have a live shot of downtown Vancouver tonight. Karis will have our full forecast coming up next.
Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox. CBC returns as the exclusive media partner of the 2024 Chutzpah Festival, November 1st to the 10th. The festival showcases international celebrations of dance, music, theater, comedy, and multimedia arts. For tickets, visit chutzpahfestival.com. And on November 2nd, support Cystic Fibrosis Canada with CBC guest host Gloria Makarenko at the annual 65 Roses Gala. For tickets, visit 65rosesgala.com.
The weather update is brought to you by Direct Buy Furnace. To cool and clean the air in your home, call Direct Buy Furnace. Installing Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Karis Hogg joins us now with a look at our weekend weather. Karis, what do we have in store for people?
Well, it has been a pretty autumny week, that's for sure. Quite a bit of rain, quite a bit of wind. You know, first significant windstorm of autumn rolled in on Thursday, and that meant power outages, still power outages for today through Vancouver Island, particularly central and northern Vancouver Island, also the central interior and the Okanagan and Kootenay regions. We're dealing with some power outages today, but drier. So if we look at the satellite and radar over the past few hours, you know, a little bit of precipitation is sort of in the central interior, but definitely a lot drier than it has been earlier this week. Taking a look at the precipitation forecast, what are we looking at for this weekend? A mainly dry weekend. Not a lot of precipitation here. But as we move sort of Sunday into Monday, then you can see, whoa, this big green blob here means a lot of precipitation is coming our way. And that is going to move through the province and come down and hit the south coast sort of Monday night into Tuesday is what we're looking at. So we've got kind of a dry weekend before we see a lot more rain. Now there is one little weather warning. It's a wind warning still in effect for sort of the South Peace River region around Dawson Creek. Winds this evening overnight 40 kilometers, but gusting to 60 kilometers an hour in some regions. So now taking a look at the 5-day forecast for Metro Vancouver. Dry weekend and getting sunnier as we move towards Monday. Mix of sun and cloud on Saturday, Sunday, and then, yeah, very sunny on Monday. Monday night into Tuesday is when we're probably going to see the rain here in Metro Vancouver. Janella?
A nice time for families to get out this weekend before that rain arrives. Thanks so much, Karis.
You're welcome.
Canadian soccer phenom Christine Sinclair, the pride of Burnaby, one of the founding players of the Portland Thorns in the National Women's Soccer League, has announced she's retiring from the game. Sinclair says she will finish her season with the Thorns. Last year, she retired from the Canadian national team, finishing her international career as the world's top goal scorer for both women and men with 190 goals. Portland plans to honor her before the final regular season home game on November 1st. Leaving behind quite a legacy. That is your late news for Friday, September 27th. Thank you so much for joining us. To keep up to date with the latest news, you can always head to our website at cbc.ca/BC. We'll see you tomorrow.